So let's talk about something fundamental. What happens when a country starts to argue over its own name? Today, we're diving into a commentary that says Turkey is standing at a major crossroads, and the debate is about the very definition of what it even means to be a citizen. All right, so the whole argument we're digging into today really boils down to this one pretty explosive question. Is the entire foundation of Turkey's national identity being intentionally taken apart and rebuilt into something completely new? To get our heads around this, we first need to look at what the source calls a full-blown national identity crisis. The main claim here is that there's a conscious effort to shift Turkey away from being a single, unified nation-state and towards becoming a kind of mosaic of separate ethnic and religious groups. And this supposed process? It's been given a really specific and, let's be honest, a pretty loaded name: Lebanonization. The term is used to describe a move away from a single national identity toward a model where political power is actually split up among different ethnic and religious communities, a lot like the system you see in Lebanon. Okay, so you're probably asking, what's the proof? Well, the source we're looking at points to a couple of really key moments. First, there's a statement that's been attributed to a U.S. ambassador, basically saying that strong nation-states in the area are a threat to Israel. And second, and maybe even more important, there was a proposal from a big-time Turkish political leader to create new vice president jobs specifically for different groups, one for Kurd, one for an Alevi. The analysis says, look, these aren't just random ideas. They could be actual steps toward a whole new way of running the country. And, this naturally leads us right into the political arena. The source argues this isn't just a theory anymore. It's something that the country's main political players are actively dealing with. And in some cases, maybe even helping along. Now, this is where things get really interesting. The analysis points out what it sees as a huge contradiction inside the main opposition party, the CHP. You've got its leader, on one side, out there in public, calling the government putschists, basically people who seize power illegally. But then, on the other hand, that very same party agrees to sit down and join a constitutional commission with the government it's so loudly condemning. Right, and this quote really just nails the whole issue, doesn't it? The argument is that you just can't have it both ways. It begs the question, if you genuinely believe you're up against an illegitimate junta, why on earth would you agree to write a new constitution, the bedrock of the nation, with them? So what gives? How can both things be true? Well, the source suggests it's basically political theater. The idea is that all the tough talk is just a show to keep angry voters happy, to make them think a real fight is being fought. But all the while, behind the curtain, they're taking part in the very process they're shouting against. And this weird political disconnect, it's not just happening behind closed doors. It's spilling out into the public square in what you could call a war of words. It's a huge national debate that really comes down to just two words, but they have massive implications for the country's identity: Turk versus Turkili. So here's the debate in a nutshell. You've got the word Turk, which is increasingly being pushed as a purely ethnic label, for people of Turkish descent. And then, taking its place, you have this other word, Türkieli, which is being sold as a civic identity. It just means from Turkey, and it's meant to include every citizen, no matter their ethnicity. And you've got some heavy hitters weighing in on this, like the famous historian İlber Ortaylı. He's completely rejected this new term. His point, which you can see in this quote, is that Turk was always the inclusive civic identity for everyone in the country. It never needed changing. But, and this is a big but, the analysis we're digging into says, hold on a second. It argues this whole debate is just a distraction, a sideshow. The real problem, it claims, isn't which word you use. It's the slow, steady chipping away of any kind of unifying civic identity because the traditional term Turk is being deliberately redefined to mean something much narrower. Now, according to the source, all this high-level political and identity stuff, it's not just abstract talk. It's seen as having a very real, very damaging effect on the country, fueling what it calls a kind of societal rot, a deep decay in the country's moral and ethical core. As proof of this rot, the source brings up some pretty wild scandals. For instance, get this, the discovery of over 400 fake diplomas, and many of them were allegedly used to get official government jobs, apparently complete with forged signatures of state officials. Just, wow. And it doesn't stop there. Another huge sign of this breakdown, an investigation recently uncovered a mind-boggling 44 billion lira in untaxed e-commerce money. The source isn't just presenting this as tax evasion, it's framing it as a symptom of a system where the rules just don't seem to apply to everyone anymore.
And this idea of a broken system, it even shows up in official tax filings. I mean, look at these numbers. Even without knowing the exact year, they're shocking. Lawyers declaring just 33,000 lira in income, hairdressers only 34,000. The argument here is that this isn't about a few people cheating on their taxes. It hangs at a massive, unspoken agreement of mutual corruption, what the source bluntly calls a we'll steal together kind of pact.
So there's actually a really powerful Turkish word for all of this, çürüme. It means decay, rot, corrosion. And the theory being put forward is that this isn't just random bad behavior. It's what happens when a country's institutions get so hollowed out that bending or breaking the rules becomes the only way to survive. And the source lays the blame for that squarely on a one-man regime. Okay, so to bring this all down from the theoretical to the very real, very personal level, the author of this piece, Levent Gültekin, shares his own story, and it really hammers home the price you can pay for speaking out. It all kicked off with just one tweet, a single post online. He questioned the wisdom of tying a nation's entire defense industry so tightly to one man, Selçuk Bayraktar, who happens to be the president's son-in-law. And then he asked the question, is this a banana republic? For asking that, he got sued for damages. And the price for that tweet? Well, you can see it right here. It started as a fine of around 30,000 lira, but after his appeal was shot down, it ballooned to over 73,000. He points out that a lien was slapped on his accounts almost immediately, a move he saw as just petty and meant to punish him. For him, this wasn't just a legal battle. It was a first-hand experience of the exact societal decay he was writing about. So, let's just recap. We've seen this theory of a deliberate Lebanonization, a political opposition that's maybe playing both sides, and this deep societal rot that punishes people who speak out. It really just leaves us with this one giant final question. When a country's identity, its politics, and its morals are all being challenged at the same time, what happens next? That's a question we're thinking about. Thanks for joining us on The Explained.